a tool that helps no one is no tool at all. So many people outside of this industry that we call tech have work to do, have things that they are passionate about, have goals and ambitions. I believe that the role of tech should be to empower those people to do the work that they were already doing.
I will say this as a self-avowed AI skeptic. The downsides are so obvious. It's tempting to be able to step back and just let the AI do it. Anyone who is trying to convince you otherwise, that you're going to be able to fully integrate this into your workflow without making any decisions whatsoever and without any downsides, is selling you something, or they're trying to sell you.
Hello and welcome to Hard Paths, the podcast where we explore the phenomenal journeys that people have taken into the tech world from a wide range of brilliant backgrounds and the lessons they've learned on those journeys, and perhaps also focus on the hardest bits that they overcame and the breakthroughs that happen as a result, and maybe also the people who helped them make those breakthroughs. So I am delighted to welcome Marselena Sequoia, who is a Codesmith graduate and an engineering mentor at Codesmith, where she provides the guardrails and the above and beyond support that I know means so much to the resident body, the student body at Codesmith. Before Codesmith, Marselena graduated Yale in English and then went on into a career in community organizing and policy advocacy that she continues now with a new tech bent to it, and bringing the sort of tools you can bring to local communities when you add technology to the mix. And so I am delighted and honored to welcome Marselena to the podcast today. Ooh, hello.
Hi, Will. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here.
I think we've together talked about the why that we do the work that we've done, and perhaps more than anybody you've done. But maybe we can start with a little bit of that why, maybe the kind of, I don't know what to call it, creation myth, but the kind of how you came to move from, I think, really extraordinary on the ground community organizing to step into something that can sometimes potentially for people feel detached from that of code, quite abstracted from that on the ground experience. Like, how did that transition begin for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. What a good question. It's so funny because I think that I, like so many people who have, gotten into the software engineering industry later in life, I come from maybe something that we could call humble origins as far as coding is concerned. My first love was Google Sheets. I, go all the way back to, you mentioned that I, in a previous life, worked in issue advocacy and political organizing. In 2020, I was an organizer in Iowa for the Iowa caucuses. And I remember all the way back then being alone in my car in the middle of a cornfield, on my way from one meeting to a next, and looking at all of the people that I needed to meet with, all of the organizations that I needed to chat with, all the things that I needed to do. And I was looking at this on a spreadsheet and doing so much copy and pasting, so much rote work, and I was pulling my hair out thinking there has got to be a better way to do this. And so I, started, making my little Google Sheets formulas, making things just a little bit easier for myself at that time, doing the work that I was really passionate about. And I think fast forward to now, that through line has really stayed with me. The reason why I'm interested in software, the reason why I'm interested in technology, is first and foremost to help people do the things that they were already trying to do to begin with. So many people outside of this industry that we call tech have work to do, have things that they are passionate about, have goals and ambitions that they are bringing to their communities. And I believe that the role of tech should be to empower those people to do the work that they were already doing. A tool that helps no one is no tool at all, you might say.
Given that the project we worked on together so far has been a sheets-based implementation of a neural network. Tell us about which what it was like to try to build a neural network or a decision tree implementation within Google Sheets with just a few days of notice. And what's your view on?
It was funny when you and I worked on that project together because in some ways, choosing to create this neural network in Google Sheets was a return to my roots. As you know now, after all of this time learning JavaScript and Python and all of these, core technologies that we use as software engineers, the thing that would really, let me rise above the pack would be Google Sheets.
To be honest, I'll show like for me, and maybe you felt the same way. But as I was trying to put this together, like one of the things I wrestle with, and I think it speaks very much to what you're describing. I'd be curious what you think about how it applies or where it applies. Is the idea that uh, when you're trying to reason about really complex I guess interdependencies like in any system, but I think it's at the heart of the struggle that is taking, for example, technology to solve a local community's um, challenges or build tools for a local community. Is you've got to kind of go all in on two quite potentially radically different areas: what it is to you know be on the ground in a local community doing stuff, and then what it is to do that within code and within technology. I think it's very difficult, or it's very unique to have gone in on both of those.
Yeah, and I think that it brings up this difference between, the work that we do in order to build tools that are used in production, that are used by real people, and building curriculums to help our students
Mm.
learn how to build those, tools themselves. And in one of those situations, when you're building tools for people to actually use, your goal is definitely to abstract away all of the technology, so that, your end user, can just log in and do exactly what they need to do, and they don't need to think about, any of the hard parts.
Yeah.
Whereas, with our students and with the residents at Codesmith, one of the joys about building a curriculum is that you get to, go, let's say, like 90% of the way. You abstract away just the parts, that are getting in the way of someone's learning, and then that opens up the gates, for the students to do the rest of it themselves and to
Is that how you think about it when you're trying to structure stuff in the
one of the things that when I'm thinking about what it is, that students need, the most, if we wanna stick with, with teaching and building curriculums. As a teacher, it's so easy to think that what students really need is for you to come in and give them the answer, for you them to actually teach them something new. And in my experience, what most students need is actually the opposite. This gets to the core principle of hard learning that we do here at Codesmith. But I find that most students, what they really need to learn a new concept, to learn a new technology, is for me, the teacher, to get out of the way. For me to set up their environment so that they have all of the tools necessary to get there. But at a certain point, I can step away, and all they need is just a little bit of silence, a little bit of patience, in order to get themselves, to 100%.
So how does pair programming fit into that? When did my first time pair programming is I wanted to go and spend some time by myself figuring it out. And I was forced into having to like get my hands dirty immediately. And that was an absolutely life-changing experience to move from this need for perfectionism, this need for having it all figured out before I do anything. And that was a true transformation.
Yeah, yeah, perfectionism. It will kill you for sure. The situation like pair programming where students are helping each other, are teaching each other through a particular
Yeah.
challenge, brings with it the really beautiful, fun, crunchy complexity. Um, and I think that it reminds us that pair programming is all about students not only getting the space to learn and the space to do that hard learning, but also getting an opportunity to take on the role of a teacher, to take on the role of an
Yeah.
instructor. And sometimes students need that space in order to work through something hard themselves. They need somebody else who's willing to just tell you, you know what? Let's just get started. Let's not wait. Let's just try it out. Let's see if it works. And if we fail, we fail.
Yep.
And you can never, it's really difficult to know which one of those a student needs at any time. And so letting them do both, letting them be both for each other, I think is really, really beneficial.
Can you get like really specific about what technology needs there are in community organizing? You talk about the mutual support structures you create and the real needs people have. And how many people are really in your position who've lived that world and then are now able to build really anything you want?
Yeah, well, for those who might not know already, so the work that I do outside of Codesmith is that I'm very involved in local mutual aid networks in New York City. I think that I'm a bit of an anomaly among software engineers in a funny way. Not because I'm interested in using tech for the public good. Many software engineers are interested in that,
Right.
but more so because the work that I'm interested in is very much focused on work that does not scale well. We talk about scale all the time in software engineering. The every single product, their goal is to scale, to get big fast, and to reach the world, to change the world. Dare I say? And the work that I do in local organizing is just that. It's local, and I have found that over the time that I have been working in organizing, that I have been doing this work not only in New York City but like across the country. I have found that when you try to scale up human connections, something gets lost every single time. As soon as you try to build on the connection between two people who are neighbors who both believe in the same things and want to, have the same goals, as soon as you try to scale that up to an organization or to a network of 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 people, you start to lose something every step of the way. And so for me as an engineer, I am very interested in building, small scale, hyper focused systems to help folks do the organizing that they were planning to do when it was just 100 people that they were trying to reach, not 100,000. And for those kind of problems, for that kind of work, you don't really need anything fancy. You don't need the latest and greatest, the best, the most efficient, the most cutting edge technologies. You need folks who have that experience, but who are willing
Yeah.
to put in the work in order to apply it to what's to the work that needs to be done. In some ways, nothing has changed since I was, a lone organizer in the middle of an Iowa cornfield. So, yeah, with my Google Sheets, trying to build something that would solve the problem that I had at that moment. Um, Now, almost 5 years later, the tools have changed, but the goals have not in some ways. I'm still simply building solutions, building technology that will provide a solution for the organizers that I know, for myself, for other people in my community. the things that folks really need when they're doing this kind of mutual aid work is systems for organizing the work that they're doing, systems for communicating with each other, systems for ensuring their privacy. Given that so many, like you said, so much of big tech is really, really interested in finding out all of the nitty gritty about exactly what we're doing with our days, every single hour of the day. That those kind of small scale private systems, private technologies, are the things that are going to make the biggest difference for folks doing the underground organizing.
I remember there was a brilliant Codesmith student like 8, 10 years ago who was a DACA recipient, and we sponsored a hackathon for DACA recipients. And the thing he built, which got quite a lot of coverage, was a fully, how WhatsApp is encrypted end to end, and it's meaningfully important, right? Like this was an encrypted end to end, more broad like canvas, like messaging. So more like a document as opposed to WhatsApp's end to end encrypted messaging. And so you could organize, confident in the encryption, which at this point was relative breakthrough. Confident
Mhm.
your plans were encrypted end to end within this Google Docs, but more secure. Is it things like that? Are there particular tools that you found very specifically you've built out?
Yeah, yeah. I think that it's really telling to look at what tools people in the organizing space are already using. One of the number one tools that organizers in many different domains are using across the country, around the world, is Signal. And the reason is because it is encrypted, because it gives them the level of privacy in order to be able to do the work that they're doing safely. In the case of your example, when folks who are working with DACA recipients or with undocumented communities, that's work that requires a certain level of privacy, and so the technologies that I am building, have built, are very much based in that first and foremost, or else we can't get it off the ground. We were talking about scale and talking about how human interaction, human connection, does not scale well.
Mhm.
And so I think that something that's really fantastic and maybe a core success of Codesmith as an organization, as a place for learning, is that you have been able to a build an organization, build a place for learning that straddles that divide between being big enough to be useful to its students, but not too big that we lose the core of how people learn. We know that the ways in which people learn the best are one-on-one interactions with a instructor, with other learners. That human connection, that one-on-one, is so core, so critical to how people learn the best. A YouTube video just won't cut it for a lot
Yeah.
of things. And so being able to provide the service for so many students while at the same time giving them those opportunities to connect and learn with real people in real time, figuring out their solutions in the moment, rather than with a prepackaged diet of YouTube videos, I think is really, really, really core to the success. One of the biggest reasons why human interaction is so important in the learning process is because every student is different. Every student is coming to this space, to this technology, to these problems from a completely different perspective, bringing with them like a completely different context. And so the questions, the stumbling blocks for each person is going to be completely different, and they are, almost certainly not going to be served by the exact same curriculum, the exact same, talking points that another student might be really
Right.
well served by. And so I think that one of the joys about teaching at Codesmith is that I'm able to, take myself out of my comfort zone a little bit and mold myself to each and every student. For example, we have a series of lectures at Codesmith that we give to every cohort. And at this point, I have given, the same lecture on, let's say, intro to Node.js, a number of different times. And you always think that folks are going to have the same questions as the last cohort. That one person is going to have the same stumbling block that that another person does. And I have personally been I've been surprised every single time, by the diversity of questions, the diversity of perspectives and viewpoints that folks bring to the exact same content, and letting myself be flexible, and allowing myself to let the students, dictate the flow of what we talk about of our learning, I think is really, really crucial, to letting them get the experience that they need in order to digest this material.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. I think goes hand in hand with the other side, which is definitely it's these two things in equal part. The other side to me, and it ties to what you're saying, but it is a bit different, is it's about somebody else being bothered. When you say you let
Mm,
them set the flow, I think half of that is great. Now they get a customized take to their current context, what they currently know, and you kind of work that out by their question and maybe prod them a bit, and then
yeah,
from that emerges built onto their current understanding a next block of understanding, kind of in the tree of knowledge, so to speak. The other side, though, is that involves you caring, being bothered about their understanding, and caring and being bothered about uh, their struggle enough that it's worth them continuing to do so. And I actually feel like there's a lot of analogy here where I love ChatGPT to help me prepare my talks, to try and I ask questions like to prod my understanding, whatever. But the only thing that really moves me forward and makes them actually better is giving them live to an audience. That's why I'm eternally grateful. And people who've come to my talks, I've developed them over the years many, many times. I have deep gratitude towards certain people. Shout out to people like Marie France, or Jim, or most recently Absana, who went to Codesmith afterwards. And they were just, yeah, every one of them who just came every single week as I tried to craft these talks, and I would call on them to explain what had just happened, or I would um, you know, ask them to walk through the code line by line, and their understanding and or commitment to trying to understand and or not is equivalent to me to your investment in residents, in students. That means that when they're struggling, they're like, well, they keep telling me it's worth it and it's going to pay off. Okay, I'll push on a little bit longer. And
mm,
in the end, it does. To me, it's no different. It's when someone's in the audience keeping showing up. Devin is making waves. Devin AI released it after Cursor AI has been growing in its centrality to workflows, to a developer workflow. And Devin, to me, points to the speed at which tools are going to change in this era, but is got a new version out that I think can take on more complex tasks. How do you think about the shift in tools? How do you think about, maybe have you played with Cursor? Have you pushed
mhm.
Dev? Did you go beyond the uh, demos of Devon AI to actually see if you could integrate it into your workflow? Because these are things that are coming, but also not perhaps as they first appeared in a way that might feel more threatening to an engineer's role, but instead as perhaps something else. So yeah, how do you think about those tools?
I think that it's important to, split this up, between, when we're thinking about using AI for building, as engineers, and when we're using AI for learning, as teachers, as students, because I think that the use cases are obviously different between the two of them, but so are the potential pitfalls. And so maybe I'll just stick with teaching and learning using AI for just a second. Um, I definitely, use, LLM, coding assistants, as part of my daily workflow. I use, LLMs, like, ChatGPT and Claude, as part of my workflow, when I'm building out curriculum, for students. And I think that the benefits are obvious, obviously. They are incredible tools that are really, really valuable to the people who are using them. I think that that comes back to what the question of what are LLMs good at, and what are they not so good at. As a teacher, the things that they are really, really good at are parsing, 10,000 pages of dense documentation, so that I don't spend all of my time reading through the documentation
Yeah.
for Node, famously terrible. Maybe that's a hot take. But um, but so that I don't spend all of my time reading through documentation, and can spend more time thinking critically about how to apply that information, how to translate it with students. But the thing that I am personally worried about, as far as students coming into this space for the first time, is that, like, for example, you and I, as experienced engineers, who have been doing this in one way or another for a while, we have a we have a gut check available to us when we look at a new piece of information, when we look at a new piece of code, especially if it's a piece of code that's been written by an LLM. And, we're able to really employ that trust but verify mentality, where I can ask Claude to code me something. And then, but I am not going to just copy and paste that into my
Right.
code base. I'm able to, think critically, look through that, see where the LLM has gotten distracted, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that check is, in large parts, not available to students who are just coming to this for the first time. If you don't have the context necessary to be able
Yeah.
to judge something, it's very easy to take a look at this information that an AI has provided to you and think, well, doesn't make any sense to me, but I guess that's the way it is. Regardless of whether or not that information, whether or not that code is as valuable as you might think. And so I think that I see my role as an instructor as, in large parts, doing everything that I can to provide those instincts to my students, to give them the context, so that when they are using these tools, either in a space that they are very familiar with, or, for example, if they're using, a tool to learn a new language, if they, let's say that they know how to write something in JavaScript,
Yeah.
but they want to see, like, what this would look like in Go, for example. My hope is that my students will be able to have that context, have those instincts, to be able to critically evaluate that, beautiful piece of Go code that Claude has provided to them, and see whether or not it's actually useful.
We're talking about some, comparing two languages that's so valuable because it's identifying the commonalities, is therefore identifying stuff that's maybe intrinsic to a programming language versus identifying the differences, therefore identifying stuff that is maybe trying to solve the same problem in a different way. It's starting to build that fabric of knowledge.
Yeah,
And
and
yeah,
for beginner students, it comes down to, like, the simplest possible questions that you could ask of a particular piece of code. um, you know, I want to be able to give them the context to think, okay, is there a pattern that I can spot here, that I'm familiar with in another space that might still be applicable here? What is the efficiency of this piece of code? Um, is the LLM trying to import too many packages that don't actually do anything? All of these basic questions that you and I know to intrinsically look for whenever we're evaluating a new piece of code. It's important that we teach our students that as well.
So let me ask you this, just because the hot takes make the best 30-second shorts. Uh, these questions are prepared by somebody who wants hot takes on 30-second shorts. However, many fear this is the true beginning of the wipeout of software engineering. Oh, God. What are our thoughts on that?
I will say this as a self-avowed, AI skeptic. I mentioned to you that I do use LLMs in my day-to-day workflow. But I brought myself to that kicking and screaming. I have been a little skeptical of introducing AI into the space for a little while, mostly because the downsides are so obvious, that the risk of, introducing, hallucinations into our code base, the risk of just blindly integrating a particular tool or a particular, blindly, approving a PR, that an AI has made, without really taking a look at it. Um, they're really, really, um it's tempting, to be able to step back and just let the AI do it. And that is a really easy way, for your code, to get really bad really quickly. To just let the AI make all of the decisions. And so I think that, maybe my hot take, if you're looking for that, is that, with the technology as it is right now, it's really good at some things, but it's really bad at creating something new. For example, you mentioned a Devin. Um, I have not paid the $500 a month to use Devin myself right now, but it has the same downsides as so many other tools in the space. And those downsides are that it is very good at writing code in a particular space where a lot of code has already been written. For example, if you want to use Devin to create a basic component in React, it'll probably do that for you. But if you want it to do anything new, if you want to write a component in a newer framework that may be more efficient, more applicable to your use case, the
Mhm.
usefulness of Devin is going to plummet really, really quickly. And God forbid if you want to, actually come up with anything truly novel in this
Right.
space, something that no one has ever done before. The this usefulness of this tool is going to quickly drop to zero. And so my hot take is that anyone who is trying to convince you otherwise, that you're going to be able to fully integrate this into your workflow without making any decision whatsoever and without any downsides, is selling you something, or they're trying to sell you. And so it's the hype is strong, and the benefits are there, but software engineers are not going extinct anytime soon.
You hear that, people? By now. No. So I think what is exciting is the feeling, though, that there is possibility of new things that can be built as a result of, I would say, prediction or nuance in software, which is what this does speak to, and I love that. I think that's really exciting, and I also would just say humans do always seek out hard stuff. I don't know why we have, I think, an instinctive desire, all while we love shortcuts. And I feel like AI speaks to that very tension. On the one hand, we're like, oh my God, maybe this could finally magic me into my 4-hour work week. And at the same time, we will just use that same freed up time. And you may say this is part of a capitalist, conspiracy. That's not to have a view on it either way per se, but we do look for hard stuff to do. And the beautiful thing is, if some of the bits that were hard become easier, then watch how we move to therefore work on other hard stuff. But now it can be at an even more impactful types of problems.
My use of these tools as an engineer is very much based in that trade-off where I want the tools to abstract away some of the hard work, some of the decision making, but I don't want to allow myself to let it abstract away the actual decisions of what should be integrated, how we should solve a particular problem. And it's really tempting to just sit back and let the tool do everything. And so holding that at bay, I think, maybe will become our job as software engineers. Allowing ourselves to care just enough to not be lazy with it.
Which, by the way, I think is an amazing epithet to close on for now, and also in all aspects of one's working life as well. Beautiful. Thank you so much to Marselena. It's been a wonderful opportunity to talk through with you the hard parts of your teaching, the hard parts of your journey, the insights you've taken from it. Thank you so much, and good night.